Our next session is entitled Audience-Driven Entertainment as the Next Frontier in Gaming. So, massively interactive live events are zero-friction, highly accessible forms of entertainment that can be experienced on any connected screen-equipped device. In this presentation, Chris Hamilton will give us an introduction to Miles. Mr. Chris Hamilton. Yes, indeed. Walk this way. Would you like to come on stage? Now, I don't know whether you'd like to... I'll move my laptop out of the way. If you want to go here?
That would be fantastic, yeah.
Go right ahead. You got power and stuff? You're all good?
I think I'm all good, yeah.
Gents, Chris Hamilton, take it away.
Where's the clicker?
Oh, clicker is...
Is the clicker here and working? Okay. All set? Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this talk on audience-driven entertainment and Miles, or massively interactive live events. I'll cover a little about myself, about Genvid. I'll talk about massively interactive live events, or Miles. I'll talk a little bit about spectator-centric design and what we mean by audience-driven entertainment. And then I'll jump into case studies of Rival Speak and our new project, The Walking Dead Last Mile. So my name is Christopher Hamilton. I'm the Director of Developer Relations in Europe for Genvid Technologies. I also feel very strongly about giving back to the community, so I'm involved in the IGDA, where I'm a European coordinator, IGDA Finland, where I'm still involved in the chapter here, the Finnish Game Jam, and We Love Games. Genvid Technologies was founded in 2016 by some Square Enix veterans. It is a US-based company with headquarters in New York and offices around the world. The company has raised $166 million to date. You can see our funders here on the bottom of this slide. I'll just point out Galaxy Interactive and Makers Fund because we have people from both of those funds on our board. We also have amazing advisors like ex-Square Enix CEO Ichiwata, digital media executives Matt Ball and Andrew Snyder, Anna Sweet, who was instrumental in building Steam and Valve into what they are today. She's currently head of studio at Bad Robot Games. And then Cindy Holland, who was a VP for original content at Netflix. And JT Gleason, who was at Twitch for more than 8 years in key roles, leading both partner and developer relations. So our mission is to power the future of interactive media. We believe that people love shared experiences, particularly when that participation matters. Be it gaming, sports, or reality TV, these are the events that become water cooler moments in the office, and we're already creating these massively interactive experiences with top-tier partners and platforms. Now let me talk about Miles, or massively interactive live events. The concept that you'd be watching people play games used to be limited to sitting on the couch waiting for your friend to finish the game. Now, today, we're seeing as many people watch games as play them. How do we, as game developers, create content that maximizes the opportunity, not just for the player base, but also for people who are watching, and the people who want to engage but only have a very short amount of time to interact with that content? And this is what we've been looking at with this foundation that we call massively interactive live events, or Miles. This vision of Miles comes from 13 years of work and research in the game streaming space by video game veterans from Square Enix. Back in 2009, the people that I work with were thinking about the future of games and interactivity. They had this thesis that if you could render things in the cloud, you could do things with AI and physics that up to that point were just not possible. And you need to remember at this time, Twitch did not exist, and live streaming on YouTube and Facebook wasn't available. So what does this interactive media look like? Well, visual media, TV and film, started in the 1920s. Video games become interactive in the 1970s. There's video game broadcasting that starts in the early 2010s. And the future of our industry is likely something that's highly immersive. But we feel that there's an opportunity between traditional media and fully immersive games that is compelling for video game developers today. Video games require my full attention. I cannot play Candy Crush, Angry Birds, or Clash Royale without giving the game my full attention and tapping on the screen. Traditional media does not require my attention. And that's why the average American watches about 5 hours of television a day, but really only 1 hour of that demands their attention. This is some premium program like Game of Thrones or maybe Better Call Saul. But for the most part, the other 4 hours, it's kind of on in the background, and people are kind of paying attention to it and kind of moving back and forth. It's there in the background. People might be cooking or working or doing something else as their attention moves back and forth. There's an incredible amount of content being consumed by people who don't have the time, the ability, or necessarily the interests in getting progressively better at a game. And if I don't have a few hours to play an immersive AAA game, I might watch somebody else play. And I might watch them play and have it in the background, and again, my attention might kind of move back and forth with it, and I'm experiencing it vicariously through this stream. So now, what if you had the opportunity to change and affect that content? What if you were watching Netflix and you could change and impact things? These are the questions that we've been asking and the types of things that we're helping developers build around. Players of the core demographic that game developers are thinking about. But when we look at streaming media and the streaming wars of Netflix, Disney Plus, and HBO Max, we see that there are billions of dollars being spent today on content, and we see this as an opportunity for developers to create interactive content that can be consumed by linear media audiences. Did anybody here see the Netflix Choose Your Own Adventure program, Bandersnatch, a couple years ago? Now think of what that would be like if it were done by game developers. What would it have in terms of loops and engagements? You could still lean back and watch it, but you could also choose to lean in and engage and participate and impact what was happening, not just for you, but for everybody that's watching. People from traditional media don't really understand this, but you as game developers, particularly free-to-play game developers, you know how these experiences can be successful. Mobile developers who have worked in casual genres, particularly genres like idle games or anything that has short casual play sessions, understand kind of how these engagements work, and this is an opportunity to expand the audience beyond the players to people who just want to watch the game and interact with it as well. So Miles are cloud-powered, they're highly engaging, they're interactive live broadcast events that allow anyone to be part of a large audience while directly participating in the event in a meaningful way. Miles combine the best of lean-forward gaming, lean-back TV, and the thrill of live entertainment. And here the audience will matter, and the audience can determine their own level of involvement or influence. We think of this as a new form of content, a new genre of entertainment. If you want to immerse yourself and have agency, you can. If you just want to lean back and watch, that's good too. But by allowing for different levels of engagement, we open things up for new audiences and create new revenue opportunities. Game studios are in a position to expand this audience beyond the players to everybody that just wants to interact with it. Go back here. Right. So during these early years, we worked on a number of R&D projects with various studios. Rival Peak was born out of a project made by a studio called Pipeworks in Oregon. They made a very robust AI and that had left 10 people stranded on an island, and they were all kind of fighting one another to see who was going to survive. And basically, it's a zero-player game. It's an AI simulation that's playing out, but everybody in their office was transfixed watching how these different characters were kind of attacking each other, doing things, and who was going to be the lone survivor. They made a demo for us, which you can see pictured here, where they allowed the viewers to sort of play God. They could sort of choose a drone, drop it in. It might give them might give some player a powerful weapon. It might give somebody health. But it basically was tipping the scales as to who was going to be sort of survivor or who the winner was going to be. This eventually was very intriguing to Facebook, and this was evolved into a multi-million-dollar project called Rival Peak. Rival Peak is a different experience where the characters were not trying to kill each other, but rather compete against each other in a sort of reality TV show. But it's important to know that it's not really a game so much as an AI-driven experience. So there are basically three parts. Okay. There are basically three parts to this mile. There's a Facebook instant game. This is a persistent world. It's very similar to the show Big Brother, where the audience can follow all the contestants and what they're doing 24/7. All of these AI-driven contestants are driven by a sophisticated AI that was developed by the folks at Pipeworks, and voting takes place through audience participation events, or APEs. And these are various interactions that happen on the live stream. So the contestant, that is the AI character in the mile with the lowest score, the lowest number of interactions, is eliminated. So the audience votes by engaging with the instant game. Rivals Speak, which was a Facebook Watch original companion show, was hosted by Will Wheaton, and that gives the audience a much deeper look into this world, its secrets, its characters. This show is much more like Lost. It had a very complex storyline with conspiracy theories and total craziness that was dreamed up by the team at DJ2 Entertainment. It was more than just a weekly wrap-up show. It really, Will interviewed a lot of the contestants and really gave more of a backstory and really kind of filled in a lot of the other parts around everything. And again, Will and the producers, they had no idea who was getting eliminated week by week, so it created this intense, crazy production schedule where voting for the characters would end on Friday. We would have to readjust all the dialogues and everything over the weekend, write the script for Will, shoot him on Monday, go into post-production on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, that program would air. And then that half hour, the instant game would go down, the team would be able to load the next week's amount of content up, and we're ready to go. So it was really kind of crazy to see it happen. And then there was the Facebook platform itself, which was basically there were all different types of character pages, and the game page itself, people were able to ask questions and do stuff and interact with characters, and more or less like live tweeting shows. This is basically what you'd, just another way to engage with the various characters. This is essentially what it looked like. This is basically Portia's live stream. I'll just point out that the game is still active and it's in sort of rerun mode, so if anybody wants to scan the QR code, they can jump into it right on their phone. This is Portia. She needs to get some exercise. We're helping her. We're speeding up her ability to get the exercise by tapping on this sort of idle game. And by doing this, we're scoring points. She is scoring points, and she is less likely to get eliminated. Across the bottom, you can see quick jump. Click on any one of these characters to jump to their individual live streams. You can see the 3 characters that have already been eliminated. You can jump to the home screen. And then pull up information on Portia, dialogues, leaderboards, all sorts of things. There are a number of also daily voting things that you could click on, but I think you get the idea. So the project ran for 3 months. The interactive streams were getting more than 100 million minutes viewed, and the Rival Speak program had 13 million minutes watched. These were some of the interactions that the audience could engage with. Most people engaged with the storyline, basically reading the dialogues, but people also participated in various events and various votes. Like you could vote for what the weather was going to be the following day. You could maybe vote to see maybe 2 AI characters get together and have some sort of romance, and it sort of directly moves the narrative forward. There were contestant votes. You'd often see one of the characters kind of stand there and go, what should I do next? And then there would be 3 options that you could kind of vote for, and then the vote that got the most actions would be what that character would actually do. But I will point out that one thing we discovered with this project was that people actually don't like voting so much because you lose agency. If it's just 2 of us making a decision, I have a 50-50 chance that I'm going to get what I voted for. If there are 3 people, it's maybe 33% of the time. If there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people out there, you don't have much agency. So we've really changed this into more of an influence system in our follow-up game. Power Project's Match 3 memory games were mostly the sort of audience participation events that people got involved with. These are all very simple games that don't require instruction. Everybody knows how to play them, so it was very accessible. We did get a lot of feedback saying, hey, could we just play the Match 3 all the time? We really like them, so we created these tribute challenges where people could just engage in the Match 3, collect things and send tools or food or maybe nasty, evil surprises to the contestants to troll them. It was quite fun and interesting. Some basic demographics. The top 5 countries were the US, Mexico, Brazil, India, and the Philippines. This is basically 13 Unity instances streaming from the cloud. and since it's streaming from the cloud, it works really well on low-end Android devices without even having to optimize for them. This is sort of hence why we had some of the strong numbers we had in some of these countries. The experience was more like a casual game, so I was quite surprised that men edged out women in terms of the audience. And I should note here that iOS support wasn't added until midway through the project. Facebook originally didn't offer that, but then this was getting so much traction, they put some developers on it, and lo and behold, we got there. So The Walking Dead Last Mile launched on Facebook on July 11th. It is the next big installment of the Walking Dead franchise, and this story is driven by you, the fans. You influence a constantly evolving coastal Alaskan community through the instant game, with new story content available every day. Live interactive streams are hosted by Yvette Nicole Brown and Felicia Day, and they reveal new story details and discuss the impacts that fan choices have had. And maybe this is gonna, I guess we're not gonna get to see the trailer. Okay, so much for the trailer. But let me set the stage. Again, this mile is set in a remote Alaskan town called Prosper Landing. The inhabitants are among the last survivors of the undead onslaught. It is a rather harsh winter, and hordes are bearing down on them while they fight amongst themselves for resources and authority. And many of the interactions that take place here generate influence points. And then you sort of grind for these influence points, and then you can use those points to bid on decisions, large and small, that impact the story as it moves forward. So when you start, you end up creating your own survivor, and there are 12 different classes, and you join one of two factions. And then basically all these characters are both working together to survive the undead onslaught while competing with one another for resources. And this is sort of typical of the Walking Dead franchise, leaving you with very interesting ethical decisions that you have to make. You can send your survivor on quests to help contribute to the community or build up your own influence points. And survivors may appear in cinematic cutscenes, and as such, they will be immortalized in the Walking Dead canon. Similar to Rival Peak, you jump into the action by finding out what happened to the community, to the community-driven storyline as it's unfolded since you were last on. And then you engage in mini-games to contribute or sabotage your faction, collect the influence points, and impact how the story develops. And then you connect with the hosts. They're sharing their live streams. They interview people and discuss key junctions in the overall plot. Can we, Okay. Similar to Rival Peak, there's a TV show component to this experience. On Mondays, Nicole Brown has a weekly interactive live stream where she reviews the culmination of the previous week's audience-driven sort of twists and turns. On Friday, Felicia Day hosts her own live stream. She's playing the live stream herself, but also with a global community, and she has people kind of coming in and talking to her. This usually launches sometime in the evening Pacific Coast time. It's all available for us on demand here in Europe. The whole story has been evolving since July. It'll take place over 4 months. The prologue was sort of an open beta period where we were polishing things and getting feedback and figuring out sort of things that we wanted to tweak and help develop features for future expansions. And now we're into 3 4-week acts that are basically going to run through mid-November. And this is resulting in a huge epic storyline that will be canon for The Walking Dead. So Act 2 started last Monday, and as Act 1 came to a close, the relationship between the two factions became more strained than ever. As winter's full force descends on Prosper Landing, things grow dire for both groups as they prepare for the end of winter, when the recently discovered frozen walker herd will thaw and grapple with the latest horror, saltwater walkers shambling out of the bay. Act 2 also includes some new features, like a new survival mode in which players are able to participate in more rewards, escalating the threat of death by rolling random mission objectives and mission conditions, and the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Also, 2 new minigames with gun sorting and weapon making, and a new bidding system that allows players to see how their bid actually affected the outcome of the story. And let's see. Okay, I guess we're not going to have the videos work. But basically, key takeaways, the audience that is watching live streams is growing faster than the games market. This is an expanding blue ocean. At Genvid, we're platform agnostic. Basically, you pick the platform that best reaches your audiences. So we have experiences that are on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And native cloud streaming reduces friction. There's absolutely nothing for the user to download, install, update. You just get to jump right into the game. It's highly accessible because it works well on low-end Android devices that are otherwise difficult to support. Again, all you have to do is be able to stream HD content to a phone, and it will work just fine. With that, thank you.
Thank you for that. Do you have any questions? Any questions? I wanted to ask, it looks really, really complicated and hard to develop, and I'm just thinking whether these guys, you know, what tips would you give them about moving into this space and developing their own game? I mean, how do they even get started thinking about something as massive as that?
Yeah, basically, it's a SDK that's relatively easy to download, install. We have technical people that can help onboard people. I think the hardest thing is really thinking about new forms of game design because we're used to designing things for players. And so basically there are a number of levels of interaction that you can have, and a lot of that is geared more towards viewers by providing them with additional information so that you're not actually impacting what's happening, but you're getting more information, or you're sort of having a communal experience with a lot of other people. And these types of interactions require a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. We have designers, and we can help people do this. We have technical people that can help onboard people into some of the more technical things. And then you can actually have an interplay between players and viewers. That's more complicated, but it's also doable. It's typically what game developers think of first because we're used to thinking of sort of viewers as players, and we want to provide them with a game experience.
Cool. Are we ready with our next? Oh, yeah. I was going to ask, what has been the biggest hurdle, a big problem that you came up against, and how you overcame that?
What's the biggest challenge that we faced?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's an interesting question. Timelines and being able to get all the features in and hitting some of the scheduling bits. There were some issues hiring people, so we didn't really have the teams that we needed to get everything going to hit certain dates, and we had like obligations to hit things with Facebook. In general, the team has been thinking about these types of experiences for lots of time. So we have, in terms of expertise, in terms of technical expertise and design expertise, we're pretty well covered.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Give it up for Chris. We'll move on to our next session now. That was great. Thanks, man.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on. A packed program. Thank you for that, Chris. That's great. This is the Developer Toolkit track right here. Our next session of the morning. How are we doing for time? We're about there. That's good. So this is a superstar session. Why QA input during development is critical. With my guest, Rafael Torna, QA Manager, Gaming Solutions at TransPerfect. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you as well.
You're all mic'd up.
Yeah.
The clicker is right here.
Perfect.
Hopefully you have everything you need.
So which one is...
green for go.
Green to go.
Red for back if you need
Go
it.
back. All right, perfect.
Sweet. Thank you.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you here. A bunch of good-looking people. I'll have to tell you that it's my first time speaking in front of complete strangers, so sorry if there's anything that doesn't work out very well, but here we go. So my name is Rafael. I am the QA manager for TransPerfect Gaming Solutions. I have been in QA, localization quality assurance and functionality quality assurance for nearly 12 years now. And I've worked for a couple of vendors, for a couple of developers, and now I'm heading operations at TransPerfect. So yeah, we are here today to talk about the importance of QA in games, or the importance of the input from the QA people that work in your projects. This is something that you might have heard before, and it's not really. I'm not here to tell you all you have to listen to us, or it's not about me trying to get you to just listen to QA for the sake of it. There's obviously advantages and disadvantages, and there's good times and bad times for QA. Now, well, I guess I should have started with this slide. Now, okay, the question, what do I do to help developers, mobile developers? So we work with a plethora of mobile developers, all sizes, from one-man teams to larger studios, 20, 40, 50, 100 people, and some of the larger ones that you all know and love. And we give them the knowledge that we bring the knowledge that we have in QA and other services as well, but in my case it's QA. And we bring this knowledge to them so they can so they can skip that learning process, which takes often a lot of times, and a learning process will cause you to have failures as well. So we help them skip those failures, and they go straight to having successful and experienced QA people working on their projects. So, as I mentioned, I'm not here to talk about. I'm not here to tell you just listen to QA, but some of you, if you're already developing or if you're familiar with development, you'll know that QA a lot of times can be put into a category that can be seen as, like it says in here, that it's an obstacle, something just to get through, something that's not as desirable. If you'll notice, a lot of times QA people are not even put in games credits, and this is obviously to developers' discretion, of course. I don't think there's a problem with that, but just to show you that there is sometimes a separation between the QA teams and the development teams. So, to differentiate QA, I think some developers think of it as just meeting the minimum requirements for release, whether it's on console, whether it's on PC, but there's no real certification on PC, so you can pretty much release anything you want. And on mobile, which you do have an entry point for your game's quality, right? So a lot of developers just want to get to that minimum level. And you also know that there's other games, other developers, other publishers that do aim for that excellence in their game. So there's obviously a difference in the objectives of each game and each developer, and it has to do with their return of investment. What do they want out of their QA? What do they want out of their results? Do they want to just release the game, cash in, and go on to the next one, or do they want to release a game that works properly, works as expected, and keep working on it and keep releasing content for it and keep that product alive for a long time? So again, it's about developers choose what do they want based on what do they want from their game, right? Their return. So, I think we're missing some text in there. I'm gonna try to, there you go, some animation. So, for all games, you will always have that same, this is true, right? When you have poor functionality, your games are not gonna be happy. It doesn't matter how hard you worked in your game. It doesn't matter how much they enjoy the games that you make, what publisher you are. I mean, you can for sure remember a few examples from the last couple of years of games that were supposed to be the most groundbreaking games in the decade, and their functionality and the QA was so poor that they got sued by their investors. right? The games got pulled from the stores. Microsoft said, this game, you can buy this game, but it's crap, right? So how does that happen on a game that's supposed to be the next best thing? So obviously, when you have poor quality, you have less player enjoyment, which leads to poor reviews. We gotta remember that it's way more likely for someone with a negative experience to leave a review than for someone with a positive experience to leave a review. Because someone with a positive experience, it's kind of what's expected, right? To have a positive experience. A negative experience, no one wants a negative experience. So most likely, you guys, whenever you've had a negative experience, you've left a bad review, whether it's a restaurant, a game, a service, etc. So it's way more likely that you'll get bad reviews. And when you get bad reviews, people are not going to want to buy your game. So in the end, lack of QA, lack of a lack of QA and a lack of this process, or poor QA, will directly impact your game and will lead to poor sales. And as we can see here, this is something that I found out while I was doing the research. 20% of people will just leave your game with one bad experience. I mean, there's been games that I played that I'm like, nope, this is not happening, right? So that's the ultimate impact, is that your game's going to suffer, right? And your bottom line, whatever it is, it's going to suffer. Same with same as with functional QA. We also have localization QA or linguistic QA, and it's also a step that we see a lot of times people skipping, especially in the mobile world. People think, okay, it's in English, everyone speaks English. I have news for you. Not everyone speaks English. The fact that we move around, maybe friends or in an industry where we all speak English, and it's a language that unites us, a lot of people just don't do it or are not comfortable, even if they understand it on TV or whatnot, or they can understand or speak a little bit. It doesn't mean that they're comfortable. I work with plenty of people that are fully bilingual or trilingual, and they will still play their games in French or in Italian or whatever language they speak, whatever's their main language, right? So it's important to have also the localization process, your translation, your QA, and yeah, having those done poorly, especially linguistic QA, can take you out of the experience, right? I mean, this is an actual example of a released game on mobile, right? So you tell me if that doesn't take you out of the experience. It does, right? So I think as the takeaway, and it looks like I'm reading, but I'm not. I did practice this a little bit. In the end, when your QA done is correctly, no one will notice it. No one will see QA. No one will see the benefits of it because things will work as expected. No one will notice the placeholders that are not there. No one will notice the game-breaking bugs that are not there, right? That's the goal. QA is invisible to the player, and when it's visible, then that's a problem because it wasn't done correctly. And I think it's very important. I mean, if you guys are in development or thinking about it, that takeaway is, I think, probably the best thing, right? A player will not notice the good QA, and that was changed. That initially said, actually, a good game, good QA doesn't make a game fun, but bad QA can make a good game bad, right? So I think that's the takeaway that you guys need to leave with. So I think I need to hurry up. After I spoke to several game development and publishers, management teams, QA management teams, and Although this is really not a figure that anyone can verify because it's not really out there. Usually this is kind of kept in-house for a lot of these people. About 1 in 10 games are released with QA saying, yes, your game's good to go. So that means that the other 9 QA said, we don't think it's ready, but there's obviously other things to take into account, right? Like there's other decision makers that need to take a lot of other things into account. So games are actually being released without QA giving that green light or giving that approval, if you will. So why is this happening, right? The decision makers, they usually can be people that are not really in the QA world or have no experience in QA, and that's totally fine. But I think there's a misunderstanding, and it says in there about the importance of QA. A lot of times other aspects are giving a priority, which is, again, totally fine. Like everyone releases their game as they want, and everyone has their own priorities. But to really listen to QA feedback, it's important. So it's a weird thing. So really quickly, I'm gonna go through a quick storytelling. We had a mobile developer approaches. They had some issues with their game, where they were having issues with certain devices, which then they later found out that it was lower specification devices. They missed this because they thought QA is not important, or we can do a little bit of QA and that should be good. So they used people that were not experts in QA, that did not have the tools, that did not have the processes, that did not have the equipment. But they thought, it's gonna be good. We tested on a few devices and it works well, and you're good to go. The problem is that you couldn't get past a certain point of their game, and they really couldn't figure it. They couldn't figure it out. So they came to us. They brought us this problem. They told us what they needed, what they wanted, and we have way more devices than they would. So we went ahead, did the test, provided the information that they wanted. They had some test plans that they wanted us to follow, and ultimately it ended up being something that they did not or could not fix. Some things you can, some things you can't. But what ended up happening is that they increased the minimum requirements for the game, and basically this problem disappeared because people that were having the issue were no longer able to access the game. Now, I don't know what happened, if they had any, they had to return money, or for microtransactions, maybe. But the game went from a 1.5 stars or 1.5 reviews to 3.8, I think, in the span of a few weeks, right? So more people were playing their game than they were when they had, let's say, a larger base, right? So their base got smaller, but more people were playing their game than when they first released. So what do we need? What do we need for the future? I think it's important that you guys and everyone that's developing, that we are here for, like, we have the same goal, right? Like QA and any other department, our goal is for your game to be the best that it can. And I've never met anyone in QA that says, I don't want that game to be successful, I'm not gonna report a bug. No, that we all want your game to succeed, right? So we're seeing a lot of people, and I'm seeing this change in the last couple of years. Specifically, we're seeing a lot of developers actually start bringing in QA earlier, because they've probably noticed in the last decade, so from the early 2010s to the late 2010s, there was this trend of poor QA and then relying on patches and you know, just things. We got accustomed to games releasing like garbage, and then it would take a year for a game to be properly played. I mean, you can still see them today, but this seems to be changing. People, we're getting a lot more requests to bring people, to bring testers into the development process earlier, which are usually, yes, almost ready, which are usually called dev testers. So we're seeing a lot of people ask for dev testers, ask for embedded testers. We have teams that we've been working with developers from 2.5 years before the release of the game, when usually QA takes place in the last 6 months or so. So we're speaking to developers that want, are already inquiring about QA, and they're 3 years from actually starting proper production, right? So there's definitely a shift in mentality. Why this is, I don't know. I think it has to do with just multiple failures from everyone. But there's change. There's a change happening, and I think us as gamers, because I am a QA person, but I'm also a huge gamer, and I think I'm tired of just buying a game and it not performing how it should. So I think all the decision makers and everyone working on their games, they're noticing this. So this is changing. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think I have any more time. So. That's it. Well, I did miss a couple of things in there for the presentation. Animations are not good for presentations. Oh, that's a huge one. Really quick, sorry. So, as you go, right, when you're bringing in earlier your QA team, your QA will probably be all those things: faster, cheaper, and better, right? So you're not going to have this massive team for 3 months, and your development team is going to have to go through a backlog of things and get swamped, right? So if you get a couple of people in early, they can work next to your development team, and you can address things in a more natural way, right? And it's going to be cheaper. You're not going to have such a massive team, and your end product is going to be better. So that one's great. That one's really, really good. Any questions? I think we're short on time.
Yeah, we've got to move on. Do catch up with Raphael at the show.
Yeah.
Any questions? Yeah. Find out what TransPerfect can do for your game. Speak to the man right here. But thank you for that.
Thank you,
Raphael.
Thank you, everyone. And do make sure to visit us at the TransPerfect booth. And if you go back here, you should find some cookies and some goodies. So please go ahead. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so
much. Have a lovely day.